right outside, so come on in, don't be shy. We've got ghosts and UFOs. Brace yourself, get ready for the show. Don't be afraid of the dark, the fun's about to start. Nightmares or tales will inspire. Oh, tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Have you heard tell of a demon next door? Or maybe a cryptid on the lake shore? There's nothing too strange for us here, so if you're ready, stamp out your fear. Don't be afraid of the dark, the fun's about to start. Nightmares or tales will inspire. Tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Whoa, whoa.
Welcome back, campers, to episode 68 of The Scaredy Campfires. Tonight we step into the uncomfortable space between knowing and not knowing, where uncertainty stretches longer than it should and clarity never quite arrives. Tonight's first story comes from Reddit user u/alonestranger7118, who has been grappling with a series of unnerving events unfolding on a remote family property, steeped in history and shadowed by strange sounds. What started as a terrifying, otherworldly scream piercing the quiet night quickly spiraled into a chilling pattern of unexplained noises and eerie animal behavior, all set against a backdrop of ancient woods and whispered legends. Hello. The events I am about to share have all happened within the past 2 years or so. I'm a horror fanatic, so I'm familiar with cryptids, creatures, legends, and similar topics. However, I have no reasonable explanation for what's happening right now. Before I get into it, I want to make it clear that I'm not suffering from any mental illness, nor do I fully believe in the supernatural. English also isn't my first language, so please forgive any mistakes. The property I live on has been owned by my dad's side of the family for generations. It's located in the countryside, and the house itself is a manor, old but very nice. Woods surround the property and stretch for about 2 kilometers behind it. The house is relatively new compared to the age of the land because around 100 years ago, a woman on a horse supposedly robbed the previous house of all its silver, burned it to the ground, and rode off. While renovating, we found a book behind our pantry that detailed the property's history, but I can't find it anymore, no matter how hard I try. Either way, it's been a lovely place to grow up, and I have many great memories here, at least until about 2 years ago. I had my bandmates over to stay the night because we had a gig nearby the next day. I had slept poorly the night before, so while my bandmates slept in the basement, I decided to sleep upstairs in my room. And before anyone calls me out for making my friends sleep in the basement, that's where our off-brand living room is. We had a great night, and I went to bed at around 2:30 a.m. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I suddenly became wide awake from a noise coming from outside my house. I live on the 2nd floor, and since it was summertime, I had my window open. The noise I heard was unlike anything I had ever heard in my life. It was a scream, guttural, gritty, and ear-piercingly loud. Each scream lasted about 4 to 5 seconds, and between each one there was a breath just as guttural and harsh. It sounded like whatever was screaming had been doing so for hours, but that couldn't be the case because it started suddenly, right in front of my house. At first I thought it was a wounded man because it sounded so desperate, but the longer I listened, the less I believed it was a man, or even a person at all. What really unsettled me was the sound of it running. I know many animals can sound like screaming people, and I've tried hard to find a natural explanation for this, but this thing was running on two legs. I could clearly hear it on the gravel. Not only was it running on two legs, it was running incredibly fast. At first, I couldn't tell how fast because it was running around in our front yard. I was completely frozen. It takes a lot to scare me, but this was beyond anything I had ever experienced. I felt genuinely threatened, like if I peeked through my blinds and it noticed me, something terrible would happen. So I just sat there for what felt like hours. Eventually it ran off, still screaming. That's when I realized how fast it really was. Probably almost twice as fast as the average person. That scared the hell out of me. I walk these woods every day, sometimes even at night. After the screams disappeared, I sat there for a while. I tried to record it on my phone at the last second, but it's barely audible. I had to compress the audio a lot just to hear anything at all. I waited for it to come back, but it never did. I rushed downstairs to my friends, who were still awake, watching some garbage movie. They immediately noticed how shaken I was. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" "The screaming." There was no way they didn't hear it, but the TV was loud and all the windows downstairs were closed, so the sound probably didn't carry. I told them everything. They acted shocked and said they believed me, but I could tell they probably thought I was imagining it. But then the adrenaline had worn off and I passed out almost immediately when I went back to bed. For the following months, I was extremely paranoid, walking through the woods and avoided them as much as possible. Unfortunately, every path to my house goes through the woods. As it began getting dark earlier in the evenings, I even started turning off my bike's backlight so I wouldn't be seen by whatever might be out there. Nothing happened, for a while at least. A couple of months ago, I started noticing strange behavior from my dog. At night, when I went downstairs to get something from the fridge, she would be sitting by the door that leads into the rest of the house. To explain the layout, my house is very oblong. You enter through the kitchen, and from there's a large doorway where you can see through the entire house. She would stare into the dark interior every night, completely unresponsive to me, calling her name or approaching her. Her eyes were locked on the darkness. It unsettled me, but I didn't think too much of it. A few nights later, I found her sitting in front of the front door. I assumed she needed to go outside, so I let her out. She bolted immediately and disappeared into the woods. Not wanting her to get hurt or stuck, I grabbed a flashlight and went after her. I walked into the backyard, calling her name. When I was about 50 meters from the house, I heard rustling nearby. I assumed it was her and waited. Then I heard it again, the scream. It came from the woods, and instantly all the birds flew away. A few seconds later, my dog came sprinting out of the woods from the same direction as the sound. We both ran towards the house as fast as we could. The backyard is a large open area, and I felt incredibly exposed and vulnerable. We made it inside and locked the door. The screaming could barely be heard anymore, but I didn't sleep much that night. A few months passed, and I hadn't thought about the screams in a while. Then a few days ago, everything changed. That's why I'm reaching out now. Maybe someone has an idea of what's going on. A few nights ago, as I was trying to sleep, I heard a sudden noise. Something was outside, knocking on the walls. It only lasted a few seconds, but it was unmistakable. Since then, similar events have happened every night, but this time it was tapping on my window on the second floor. I'm scared, but I don't have any real reason to call the police. I just hope you believe me and maybe can help me figure out what's happening. Update. Hey again. Thank you all for your comments. They help me more than you know. I want to mention that I've considered the possibility of it being a fox, The fox population used to be large in this area, but in recent years they've either died out or moved away. I'm very familiar with fox screams. I've heard them many times growing up. They are terrifying, but what I heard was nothing like that. The wildlife in this part of Sweden is very limited. Boars, lynxes, and foxes are the only predators here. Lynxes are extremely rare, and I'm almost certain they don't live in these woods. The same goes for boars. I've also started looking into the history of the property more closely. My grandpa, who lives here, told me that 7 people have died in the woods over the past 25 years. That's strange considering there are no animals here that would dare attack a human, and the terrain itself isn't dangerous. It's all very strange, but I'm staying skeptical. I'll update again if I find anything worth sharing. Despite the fear and countless sleepless nights, the user remains grounded, searching for answers while balancing skepticism with the undeniable reality of what they've experienced. The woods hold their secrets tight, but the story is far from over. Tonight's final story comes from Reddit user u/longjumpingtax5702, who recalls a quiet night by a lake that transformed into an unforgettable encounter with strange glowing lights moving silently above the treetops. What began as a soft humming buzz quickly grew into a mesmerizing display of rotating beams, drifting steadily closer and casting an eerie glow over the house. There may be some errors in this text as I wrote it using a translator. I apologize in advance. This happened when I was around 13 or 14 years old. I don't remember exactly. I was visiting my uncle at the time. His house was located on the shore of a small lake, with trees growing along the water's edge. One side of the lake was lined with willow trees along a road that passed close to the house. On the opposite side of the lake was a steep hill about 15 meters high, with poplar trees growing on top of it, reaching another 30 to 40 meters in height. I stayed at his house for the night and went to bed. Above the bed where I was lying, there was a window that was slightly open to let fresh air into the room. From my position, I could see the tops of poplar trees and the beautiful night sky. I didn't pay much attention to it and fell asleep quickly. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a soft humming sound, similar to the buzzing of a transformer. Over the course of about a minute, the hum gradually became louder, and I realized that the sound was coming from outside. As it grew stronger, I started looking out the window. At some point, I noticed a light above the treetops, which I initially mistook for streetlights. However, I quickly realized that the light was moving and that there were actually 3 separate sources. They resembled searchlights, rotating in relation to each other, and were moving towards the house. I can't give an exact measurement, but I estimate that they were about 20 meters above the treetops and moving at a speed of approximately 30 to 40 kilometers per hour. As they passed over the house, the noise became similar to that of an airplane flying high in the sky. The entire event lasted about 20 to 30 seconds. During that time, I didn't move at all, either out of fear or fascination. The sight of the bright night sky, the swaying trees, and something unidentified flying above was truly mesmerizing. After it was all over, I woke up my sisters. My cousin and my sister were sleeping in the same room with me, and told them what had happened. They didn't believe me and tried to convince me that I had been dreaming, but even today, I'm certain that I was fully awake and that what I experienced was real. Though family members dismissed it as a dream, the user remains certain of what they saw, a brief, haunting glimpse of something unexplainable in the stillness of the night, whether mystery, visitation, or something else entirely. The night's silent flight still hums quietly in their mind. That wraps up episode 68, campers. If you find yourself waiting for clarity that never comes, don't wait too long. Some questions are safer left unanswered. Stay by the fire and let the unknown remain unknown.
As the night gets longer and the darkness creeps in, with the eerie silence broken only by whispering wind, come gather round the fire, the flickering flames, and hear the tales of the spooky and the strange. Chill up your back, a shiver up your spine. You'll be haunted by the things that you find. Legends will unfold and stories will be told at the scary campfire, for only the bold